Greetings, timeless sagas aficionados. Today, we embark on an epic voyage through time, as we delve into the origins and history of sailing. So, hoist the mainsail, batten down the hatches, and let's set sail on this nautical adventure. Our story begins in the mists of prehistory, as our ancestors cast their eyes across the endless expanse of water stretching before them. For these early humans, the seas and rivers were not just barriers, but also highways that beckoned them to explore the world beyond the horizon. But first, they needed a means to traverse these watery realms. And so, the first boats were born. The earliest evidence of watercraft dates back around 900,000 years ago, with the discovery of stone tools on the Indonesian island of Flores. These tools suggest that our Homo erectus cousins may have used some form of raft to reach the island. However, the first concrete evidence of boats comes from much later, around 8,000 years ago. In this time, our ancestors in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley were already using simple watercraft like reed boats and dugout canoes to navigate their waterways. Now, these early boats had one major limitation: they relied solely on human power, usually in the form of rowing, to move. But our ancestors were nothing if not innovative, and so they sought a new way to harness the forces of nature to power their journeys across the waves. Enter the sail. The earliest known depiction of a sail dates back to around 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. These first sails were made of papyrus, a material that was both light and strong, and were attached to simple wooden masts. And thus, the age of sail began. As sailing technology spread across the ancient world, different cultures adapted and refined the design of their sails to suit their needs. The ancient Egyptians, for example, preferred square sails, which were great for catching the wind when sailing downwind, perfect for cruising along the Nile. Meanwhile, the ancient Mesopotamians used triangular sails that allowed them to sail closer to the wind, making them more nimble and maneuverable. But it wasn't just the sails themselves that evolved, the boats that carried them also grew more advanced. Around 4,000 years ago, the Egyptians began constructing wooden sailing ships capable of carrying both passengers and cargo. These ships had two sails, one square and one triangular, and featured a steering oar at the stern. With these innovations, the Egyptians were able to expand their trade networks and explore the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and beyond. Now, while the Egyptians were busy building their maritime empire, another seafaring culture was taking shape on the other side of the Mediterranean: the Phoenicians. These ancient mariners were renowned for their sailing skills, and they used their advanced vessels to establish a vast network of trade routes throughout the Mediterranean. One of the most significant innovations of the Phoenician ships was the addition of a keel, a long, flat piece of wood that ran along the bottom of the hull. The keel provided stability and allowed the ship to better resist the forces of the wind, making it possible to sail faster and farther than ever before. And with this newfound speed, the Phoenicians quickly became the dominant sea power in the ancient world. Fast forward a few centuries, and the torch of maritime dominance had passed to the Greeks and Romans. These ancient empires built upon the innovations of their predecessors, developing more advanced sailing ships and navigational techniques. The Romans, in particular, were known for their massive warships, called galleys, which featured multiple banks of oars along with sails for added speed and power. But as the Roman Empire began to crumble, a new era of sailing was taking shape in the far north. The Vikings, a seafaring people from Scandinavia, began to make their mark on the world with their sleek, fast, and maneuverable longships. What set the Viking longships apart from their contemporaries was their unique clinker-built construction, in which the hull's planks overlapped and were fastened together with iron rivets. This method produced a lighter, more flexible hull that could better withstand the rough seas of the North Atlantic. The Vikings also favored a single, large, square sail made of wool, which provided both speed and adaptability in the ever-changing winds. The longships allowed the Vikings to raid, trade, and explore across vast distances, reaching as far as North America, well before Columbus supposedly discovered the continent. And speaking of Columbus, let's jump ahead to the age of exploration, when European powers began to send expeditions across the globe in search of new lands and riches. During this time, sailing technology reached new heights, with the development of ships like the caravel, the carrack, and the galleon. These vessels were larger, faster, and more heavily armed than their predecessors, and featured multiple masts and sails of various shapes and sizes. This allowed them to sail in a wider range of wind conditions, making long voyages across the open ocean possible. As European explorers charted new territories and established colonies, they also brought their sailing technology to the native peoples they encountered. For example, the Polynesians, who were already expert navigators and sailors, adopted European ship designs and combined them with their own traditional techniques, resulting in unique hybrid vessels like the Hawaiian Wa'akaulua, a double-hulled canoe with European-style sails. The age of exploration eventually gave way to the age of sail, a period marked by intense naval warfare and global trade. During this time, ships became even larger and more complex, as naval architects experimented with new designs to gain the upper hand in battle. The culmination of this arms race was the ship of the line, a massive, heavily armed warship that served as the backbone of European navies throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. But even as the age of sail reached its zenith, the seeds of its eventual decline were being sown. The advent of steam power in the early 19th century signaled the beginning of the end for the great sailing ships, as steamships were faster, more reliable, and less reliant on the unpredictable winds. By the end of the 19th century, the age of sail had all but come to an end, replaced by the age of steam and, eventually, the age of the combustion engine. But while the great sailing ships of the past may be gone, their legacy lives on in the countless stories, songs, and legends they've inspired, and in the hearts of those who still take to the seas under the power of the wind. In that, dear Timeless Saga subscribers, is the incredible story of the origins and history of sailing. From the humble beginnings of simple rafts and dugout canoes to the majestic galleons and ships of the line that once ruled the waves, the tale of sailing is one of human ingenuity, adaptability, and our insatiable desire to explore the unknown. So, the next time you find yourself gazing out at the open water, remember the countless generations of sailors who came before you, and the timeless sagas they've left in their wake. Until next time, fair winds and following seas, my friends.